other than the Executive Director of CS-BAG, that is Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, and that is Mukunda, Julius. You're most welcome, Julius.
Good morning, Robert.
Good morning to you.
It's bad manner that we only meet on discussing budget. We should be meeting.
Because that is every time, either on the street or we meet in the compound, wherever we met, it is budget, Robert. What do you talk about the budget? You're so passionate about budgets, about issues to do with budget, most of the national budget and priorities.
Yes, because I know the budget determines the way of my life. And the way every citizen interacts with the budget means that's the outcome they will get out of it. So it is my passion, my interest, and from Monday to Sunday, that's what I do.
Julius, on a lighter note to a Ugandan watching this program, there is budget reading. I feel it's none of their business. They're not concerned. They'll rather even not know what the budget is all about. One will tell you, even if I get to know or not, what difference does it make? So briefly, let's spend a few of our minutes trying to bring the relevancy of a national budget reading to a Ugandan.
So I think I'm excited, and that's why today when I put on my lucky suit, I already have an invitation to go and attend the ceremony. Why am I so interested? Why is it so passionate? One is that a budget determines the way of life for every citizen. Whether you want to get interested or not, it will determine, for example, the cost of fuel. So the transport that will bring you from home to your workplace, the budget will determine that. Because the minister will say, I have increased or I have increased the price, reduced the price. Apart from that is that in the budget, there are things that you will directly benefit from. For example, the budget will say, we are going to pay teachers' salaries, and our children will definitely have to go to school. The budget will say, we're going to provide medicines in hospitals. We all fall sick. The budget, this financial which is ending, when COVID hit, government came up and said, oh, we are going to provide a stimulus package, and we can have a debate about that. So that's why the budget is so much important, that every citizen must be interested to understand exactly how they will benefit from the budget. For the businessmen, they shouldn't even miss it at all. Because more than 60% of the budget is on procurement. Supplying pens, supplying papers, supplying uniforms, supplying computers, even services like providing tea and catering services, it is all there. So if you're a businessman, you need to prepare yourself and say, how will I benefit from this budget? How will I get that contract? So that you prepare yourself, make sure that you have your tax returns done properly, you have tax clearance done for you, so that you get prepared. So each and every citizen must be interested. And those that are, you miss out a lot. Why? Because, again, like I said, is that when they say they have increased the price of fuel, and you are going to buy fuel and they say the price has increased, you get a shock. But for me, who has already known about that, I wasn't shocked. I would have already prepared myself that there are certain things that have also changed. So that's why the budget is very important, Robert.
Well, they were expecting the budget of a tune of 44.778 trillion that is going to be read today. But Julius, of course, we've seen a couple of allocations, and it's now general knowledge to some people that are interested how much each sector is going to get. But let's go to an interesting part that I'm concerned, and I believe any other Ugandan is concerned. That is the financing of this budget. When we look at the budget for this financial year 2021-2022, we see that we are going to finance it domestically to a tune of 22 trillion. This money must come from us Ugandans domestically, what we get from taxes and all that. How? When you've just come from COVID-19, first and foremost, actually we're still in the COVID-19 second wave. We are there. So when we look at this, is this achievable?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I must tell you is that if you look regionally, in terms of the economic indicators, the way your economy is healthy, actually, Uganda we did better even after COVID, because we were able to grow. You grow but not at the speed you had wanted, but you are growing. But people did not grow actually, they shrank. Some economies shrank. So yes, I'm very optimistic that we can actually collect that amount of money to finance the budget. But with the second wave is where it becomes a bit tricky, because last year businesses started picking up after COVID, after the opening up. But the second wave is now that has and this lockup is shaking things a bit differently. One is that we are an agriculture-based country. More than 23% of our GDP is contributed by agriculture. So
yet a big percentage of our farmers are in peasant. They're peasant farmers. Only about 40% are in commercial agriculture.
Yes, but those who do export, those who trade in it, those who add value addition, contribute a big lot to our GDP, but also to the component of our export. The taxes have not been brutal, if I can use that word. Not so much hard hitting, to the extent that, of course, like things like pay, they have not changed, for example, so it still remains the same. The current regime has tried, the current tax regime has tried to look out at those that have not been in taxation bracket, or those that have been paying a very, very low tax that they should be able to slightly increase. For example, we are seeing an increase in rental from 2030. We are seeing fish more, which we had never taxed, for example, to have come into taxation bracket. We are seeing issues to deal with the gold and other minerals that are not mining sector to get into the taxation bracket and have it streamlined. We are also seeing URA attempt to improve on administration and efficiency by automation. Last night I was telling my colleague that it's now so quick. You go on the internet and apply for
the IFLIS system.
On the internet, you apply for TIN and you get it. You don't have to go to work to URA. We are seeing the IFLIS system, the e-stamp, the invoices. And those work because the information I have is that there are certain companies whose VAT returns, they would declare a VAT return of 10 million. But with the e-stamps now, and automating the system, the same company is providing a VAT return of more than 200 million.
Wow.
So you can see that there was a leakage. So for me, I'm optimistic that if actually we do more on administration, forget about even expanding and increasing, we can even get much more. And
but also when you look at our tax base, how many people pay direct taxes? Most of the people pay indirect tax by fuel, by sugar, but not even 30% of our population is actually in the active tax base payment.
Yeah, I mean, we have 1.5 million people who are on the tax register. And I think that's where the admin part comes in, that are there others who are earning an income and are not paying? Because you see, me and you, when we are paying a payee, we are paying for the rest of the 40 million, those who are not there. But if we get more people to join, then probably even the payee that we pay at the end of the month is likely to reduce. And as such, that's why I insist on administration part for me, is that even with COVID, I think for me why you are performed, because it's a miracle that even they collected what they are collecting, is because they went in automation. They went in to look out those who have not been paying to make sure that they pay, and they pay the right amount of money. And I would encourage them that they continue that area. They invest their human resource, they invest their energy, they invest their time in looking out to those who are not paying to get into the taxation bracket. Let me give you an example. At the airport before COVID, you would walk at the airport and you find there's only one scanner. But when 3 airlines arrive at once, the airport gets overcrowded, which means that that scanner is no longer going to manage the crowd that has arrived. So what happens? You are a person, in their wisdom, start sampling. They just look at you suspiciously. You might be a businessman. That suitcase might be containing some things to declare, so pass in the scanner. Others don't. But when they invested and added another scanner, whether you have 5 or 10 airlines, they still manage them. So there is no avoiding tax or evading the tax. So I think for me, investing in those areas is very, very, very critical.
That is the bit of taxation and how we expect to get revenue. Also still on financing this budget, even before we go to priorities. Julius, here we are seeing, yes, we shall have the 22, that is trillion, that is going to be domestically collected, but there is an issue of borrowing to get this money. Why have a domestic borrowing? And yet we know we are in a time where many businesses are not doing well and some are resorting to loans. Now we know it is common knowledge that banks would prefer doing business with government than individuals. Then how does this leave a staggering economy at such a time to be able to ensure that the public sector has money in circulation and they are able to pay debts with competition for loans and with government as well?
So for me is debt per se wouldn't be a problem for this country. And I think I was with you, I think in January, telling you this debt business, we need to discuss it in a different perspective. Because when you say debt, the first thing people tell you is that do whatever it takes, don't hit 50% debt to GDP ratio. But you see, for me, what my problem was, and I told you that it is not a question of if we will hit it. It was a question of when we are going to hit it. Because
the estimate we are going to hit it, by December it was about 47%.
Yes.
And I believe we are around
now we are 51. Projecting 51. So we've kicked it out. To me, that is not a problem, even if we get to 100. But you see, the 50 means a country like Uganda with an infrastructure deficit. You still have potholes. Like we said, you are only taxing 1.5 million people are contributing out of 40. You don't have power. The water and sanitation is still inadequate in this country. Education, classrooms, hospitals, things are not yet up to that particular standard. Where are you going to get the money? Any businessman who wants to expand their businesses, who want to make more profits, they go to the bank and they borrow. I think our challenge is not about borrowing, it's about borrowing for what? Because when I put that standard criteria, and I have argued with my colleagues, I see, if I put a 50% threshold on USA, on Japan, on even our neighbors, Kenya, Rwanda, actually in the region we are the one who are still at the lowest. You will find out that they are doing better in terms of utilizing their loans than us. So for the debt question is how do we manage debt? It's not about that we have a problem with borrowing, but what kind of monies are we borrowing? Is it commercial or it is concessional? Commercial or non-concessional or concessional. So concessional loans are the ones that are better. Why? Because like the IMF is going to give us $1 billion, and they will tell you probably the interest rate could be even 0, and they tell you give us 10 years plus. But there are loans they give you, and you are supposed to pay for 40 years at an interest rate of less than 2%. Those are the loans you want to go for to fulfill your infrastructure deficit. But if the challenge is that you are acquiring money and you have no capacity to spend it, then that's why they get a problem with debt, because it means that you are going to begin to pay interest on a loan that you have not utilized. And I think that's a problem, and everybody agrees that that's the problem. Secondly is, if you borrow when you're not yet ready, it's like you borrow to start building a house, but you have no plot where to build that house from. So the moment you get a loan is the time you want to go and start searching for a plot where to build the house. Meanwhile, the bank is charging you
the interest rates
on the loan. So, and that's the same criteria, that's the same thing. So for me is, let us put our house to order. Let us ensure we build the capacity of our civil servants. Let us ensure that by the time I get a loan for a project, I have right of way. There are things that have affected project implementation because people have refused to give right of way. The road is passing through my burial grounds or my shrine, and I don't want anything to deal with compensation. You either pass on top of them or
change
underground.
The design.
Or change the design. And of course, when you begin to start those ones, then the project is delaying, you have cost overruns, and you will now begin to pay on a loan that you have not actually disbursed. So those, for me, are the things that fundamentally that are affecting our economic performance. Even the recovery we are talking about, if we don't do that, even if we borrow $1 trillion US, and we have not addressed those fundamental issues, I can tell you we still debate the same things next year.
But don't you also feel concerned, Julius, with what we are spending in servicing these debts? When you look at this financial year's budget, 2021-2022, you're going to find that about 13.9% is going to go into that is loan servicing. We are going to spend about 4.6 trillion just servicing our debts. And when you look at this money, our budget, this is the second area that is getting the lion's share. From works, you go to debt servicing, then comes in security. Yes. Don't you feel concerned, really?
Yes. Now, I get concerned. I get concerned. And my concern is not because we are paying this amount of money. My concern is that we are paying this amount of money on the loans that we have not utilized properly. So if these monies were here with us and we are utilizing them, I don't have a problem with the 4.6 trillion Ugandan shillings. But because we are paying most some of this money is on those loans that have not been disbursed, is on those loans that we have delayed to implement, is on the projects that we have delayed to complete on time. That's my concern, and that's why now I would stand and say, okay, I think maybe let us reduce on the appetite to spend. Let us say, instead of building 10 roads at a go, let us agree that we don't have that capacity. Let us build 1 or 2 at a go. That's called sequencing of projects. So instead of doing the Kampala Express Highway, and then you put the SGR, and then you put the transmission lines, and then, so you find that the project portfolio is so huge for you to manage, sequence and say, okay, let me first finish Kampala Jinja Express Highway before I add another huge road for me to complete. We have this pipeline. It's going to consume a lot of money, the oil pipeline. So you have these mega projects, but you need to paint for the seat and say, these are the key priorities. These are the key roads I want to start on. Because if you don't do that, that's why now me and you, we come and say, guys, this is too much money. We need to reduce the appetite. Because if we reduce on all those appetites, then this money, 4.6, will definitely reduce.
Then before we leave still the budget financing and we move to that is our priorities, Julius, I also need to get your take on local borrowing. Because when you look at the loans we get from the World Bank, the IMF, they're for a longer time. Of course, the rates are a bit fair. And now in this financial year, we are going to concentrate also on domestic borrowing, where also the private sector is going to be borrowing from, since business have not been doing fairly well. This competition.
Yes. Now, those are the issues that we talked about of borrowing. Which type of loan are you getting? So domestically means that government will go to the banks. Here, Standard Chartered Bank, Stanbic Bank, and say we need some money. And they will do that. They will borrow. Even me and you shall go to the same banks. The challenge is that that's one way. The other one is the Bank of Uganda will issue treasury bills and bonds. And all these other banks will collect their money and buy those paper bonds, those money papers. Which means that the commercial banks here in this country do not have enough liquidity to give me and you to go as loans, to go and also do our own businesses. To the extent that those who will remain with some liquidity, they will begin to become so selective as to who should actually get this particular money, that by the time they give it to you, then the interest rate is so high because you are more riskier to them than the government. So the interest rates, again, remain high. Other people have argued and said, but there is so much, even when the government is borrowing, there is still liquidity within banks. Banks still have some money with them. Yes, banks, there is nobody who is smarter than a bank. Why? Because They are waiting. You have almost a 6 trillion on domestic borrowing by government in this coming financial year. Why should you give it out when you know government will need that money? Sit on it. The financial is ending at 30th of June, and the government will be running to banks to collect the money. So you need to be ready with the money. They are very smart. So my take on this is government can let the domestic market, let it be for the private sector. And goes out. Because you see government has a bigger negotiating power with a multinational company in terms of getting these monies. It is easier for government to negotiate with Exim Bank of China. It is easier for government, in fact, to negotiate with Kuwait, with the Arab, these ones who have got money, with the European Bank. It is easier for government. Me and you, we can't do that. It's extremely difficult to go through that. Leave the market for your private sector. The challenge, of course, is that do we have a private sector in this country that can be able to clear out all the liquidity that the banks have? Maybe yes, maybe no. But I am very sure that once it is done that way, the interest rate will definitely come down, because government has done so much to reduce the risk of doing business by the banks. Number one, you cannot have a loan if you don't have an ID card. That's it. So now they know you. You're no longer going to say, I'm going to bank, I'm going get a loan in 3 different banks using different names. No. Number two is you have a credit reference bureau to know that you are getting a loan from 3 different banks by the same individual, but do you have the capacity to pay back? So they can measure your risk. So for me, that's some of the reforms that the government has done for the banks to be able to do that. Do we still have people defaulting? Yes, they are. Is it only in Uganda? No, it's everywhere. And banks know that there is a risk in borrowing. That's why when I want to borrow, they insure.
There's sufficient security.
They say, please bring a collateral. If it's not there, they even insure your loan. That in case, if you are likely to default, the insurance will be able to pay that money.
Away from that is the financing of this budget, let's now look at the priorities in terms of allocation. One of the things that worries me, Julius, when I look at our country in terms of financial management, 5 years ago, the cost of administration was about 3.3% going to wage bills. Today, it stands at 5.5%. That goes to wage bills. But what is most scary is that is the non-wage bills, monies that come along with positions people are given. And you find that 5 years ago, it was 4.5 trillion. Now it is 10.9 trillion. It is bigger than what we've given, that is to Ministry of Health and Education, both combined.
Admin costs. And I think to drive it home, and you brought it properly, is that when you see the non-wage bidding is from 4.5 to 10.9 trillion, it tells you something. So where is this money going? This money is going in the new cities we have created. This money is going in the new districts we have created. This money is going in the new members of parliament we've had. Because if you look at the registered budget, its budget has increased from 600 to around 800 billion. Because they have to accommodate the new needs that are rising. So for me, an ordinary person, is to let you know that if Soroti Hospital needed more money, they are not likely to get it, because we have increased the administrative cost of running government. It's not about that we have appointed a minister that they are going to be paid the salary. No. When you appoint a minister, you must facilitate them to deliver. They must have a car, they must have fuel, they must have a security person, a security detail, they must have airtime, and all the things that go with it. And that's where this money is going. So it's very important to run a lean government. A lean government means that you are likely to spend less. But you have to, and you must facilitate people to deliver. So that's why you find that in companies, that in the private sector, you cannot have a managing director, then you have other 4 deputy managing directors almost doing the similar thing. If you have to have deputy managing directors, they are specialists in a particular area that the MOD is not likely to deliver on. So there's the same things. And that's why we are supporting the rationalization of government agencies. Because the idea first was these are specialized agencies to deliver on a particular mandate. But now if you have a department of a ministry has turned itself into a specialized agency and wants to break away from the mother ministry, then you are increasing the cost of running this particular government. So to another person, I think for us, let us not always clamor that we need more districts, that we need more cities, that we need more sub-counties. Because every time we demand those things, then this budget is going to increase. So when it increases, let me tell you, the money that would have increased for medicines in our hospitals is definitely going to remain the same, or it's going to shrink. The money that we would have clamored for, that please let us increase salary for our teachers and our health workers, that money is still going to remain the same, or it's going to shrink, because we have increased the administration of government. And with government, let me tell you, every government property must be secured in one way or the other. To secure it means that you have to put resources around it. So whatever we do, I think for me is we need to limit the administration cost of government by running a leaner government. So districts, we should stop creating new ones. Cities, we should put on a halt. Issue to deal with the, members. I mean, we hit members of parliament a lot more, but it's not only them. It is even more. Now we have a cabinet of 80 people, and I think for me is these are the areas where we need to start from.
Well, Julius, in the interest of time, let me have your final remarks regarding that is the 2021-2022, that is budget that is going to be read today. I want to encourage, today is our D-Day. I'm encouraging citizens, please stay tuned. Beginning at 2:30, I think that's when the budget speech is going to start. Let us listen in. It's very important. Let us listen in and see what the government is going to deliver for us. And then from there, it becomes our role and our responsibility to monitor the implementation of this particular budget. That borehole belongs to you as a citizen. That school belongs to you. It doesn't bring anybody from Kampala. That health center, if it's not functioning, it is you at the local government who is suffering. Thank you so much. Well, I want to thank you so much. That is Julius Mukunda, who is the ED Civil Society Advocacy Group. That is where most of the things regarding budget under the civil society organizations are thought, are discussed, and we've been looking at that is the budget allocation, budget priorities for the coming budget. We want to urge all Ugandans, please interest yourselves and follow up. Follow up. Let's hold leaders accountable, because here we get to know how much we've been given, where it's going to be placed for economic transformation and, of course, social development. Let's be interested, let's follow up, and we also call upon key agencies in implementing this budget. Please, let's do the best, and above all, close gaps of corruption. Have a lovely day. I'll leave you with Priscilla, take you through the world of sports, but don't forget that we'll be giving you live coverage of the budget reading on UBC TV, and you'll be following us on our various social media platforms for live updates of whatever is happening there. We'll see you tomorrow, same time. And don't forget, it is Special Friday, and we'll be somewhere to usher you also into the weekend. God bless you.
Digital tax stamps are proof that the products have been paid tax to URA and they conform to the safety standards required by UNBS.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing